Mr. Chris, working at home today. Look at you. Is audio working? Can you hear me, Chris? Yes, Jay. The ones in my ear are working. I wish I could say the same for the ones that I sold. Chris, you there, buddy? Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Your mic's not working. Good old Zoom. Never fails.
Me now.
Sure can, sir.
Wonderful. I was gonna say right when I got into the call, you were like so happy and your smile radiated and it automatically made me happy.
Good. I was probably reading the chat, and it was actually Tony, not on here yet, but he's like, "Are you losing hair?" And then laughing, and I was like, "Yes, I am actually." I was like, "I'm getting old, man. It
I
happens."
just I just filled out my form for replacement birth certificate because I procrastinated too much and almost cannot go to GRE.
Well, a birth certificate for what?
So my passport's expired and my ID expired on my birthday.
So you have to have the other form of ID
And
to get it because it's expired.
my birth
Yeah,
certificate went off into the abyss and decided just to disappear. So I waited on the phone for 58 minutes, called the actual office, and now I should get it by the end of next week. Or
nice.
else I just can't go to GRE and I'm not
Yeah.
driving. So
Well, yeah, that's what you're across the country, aren't you?
Oregon, baby.
That's why I thought a little bit of a drive.
Yeah. The only thing I was thinking, I was like, man, if I can't get back because they require real ID, at least if I rent a car and drive, I can stop at all of the beautiful shops along the way. And I was actually planning on spending an extra week past GRE in Florida and getting to hang out with Ben Feldman and Joshua Wasner and then see some of the other shops. So that was kind of my plan. But yeah, I would have
Nice.
missed out
Yeah.
big time. So hopefully,
I,
hopefully
I
they,
don't
they get back to me.
I don't think the real ID is like they keep on pushing it. I thought it was like 2026 now.
I'm not worried about the real ID. I am
Yeah.
worried about
You're
not
just saying
having a
like 'cause it's
plastic driver's
expired, right?
license.
Yeah. Yeah, it honestly depends on the TSA agent at the day. I've seen people get by with literally like a paper printout of their
I
ID
was
before, like a copy.
I was gonna say I'm white. We're in Oregon, and like I pose no threat. Okay, like I I have been pulled over so
Y-
many times, and it's like I I feel like charismatic and being nice toward the TSA, like asking them how their day is. Like I feel like I can make it to GRE um without the real ID. The real ID is stupid anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I hate even traveling in general half the time because TSA is, there's always something that seems to not go smooth. Whether it's the person in front of you who doesn't understand they need to take their shoes off if you're in the regular line, or their belt off and they have to go through like three times, or they don't take their laptop out, you name it.
Honestly, I just think it's so flippin' cool that I'm in an industry that actually has a conference that I get to take business trips to.
Yeah, I mean,
So I'm excited just to get out
especially
of
to
it. And
Miami, right? Like you're coming from, up there. Miami's gonna be a little fun.
yeah, I was really I booked my hotel a day before I realized that I screwed every single identity form up and I didn't have anything. So I booked a $500 hotel for those 4 days or whatever, and I am effed if it does not work out because I paid less so I could have non-refundable.
Well, I'll take your hotel room because I haven't booked anything yet, if you don't go. So how
Yeah,
about that? You
I
got a
know.
nice fallback.
I'm really nervous. I felt like it was going to be easy to sell my hotel because my hotel date is the 6th through the 9th, and then I was going to go to Jacksonville or whatever. And so if it doesn't work out, I'm not too worried about the hotel because I definitely think somebody will take it. But I really do not want to give up Jiri. I really want to go. And
Yeah.
I don't need to be at my store. Like they don't need me for weeks. I'll be fine. So I'm going to be even more pissed if I have to stay here and work.
Yeah, I was honestly very impressed once, like, okay, they announced it was in Miami, great. But so whenever they announced like where it was at, like they had an address and I looked, I was like, holy shit, like I was actually really impressed. It's like right by South Beach. Like it's like walking distance to where I've stayed before, like right on, water. So I was like, no, that's way,
The,
in a
the
different, area than I thought.
the hotel I booked is Riviera South Beach, and it looks nice.
Everything is there.
It's
That's
like
why everything's
point
expensive.
1 or point 1
What?
point 2 miles away. It didn't seem that expensive. It didn't seem that
Oh,
expensive.
buddy. Whatever you were gonna make your budget, you better just 3x your budget.
What else is expensive in Miami? It's not like Las Vegas where you get a
It's
$14
worse than
bottle of
Vegas.
water.
It's worse. Yes,
Really?
it's worse than Vegas. Yes.
Well, I didn't
I
have
mean,
a
I'm not
debit
talking about a bottle of
credit card
water,
that's open.
but I mean, you're going to come back spending more money than you probably anticipated because, yes, I would definitely say it's more expensive than Vegas as a whole. I mean, no, you're not going to pay $14 for a bottle of water, but that's a casino price. You were probably sitting there not gambling.
In Vegas, I brought all cash for food, gambling, and everything. I think it was like 3 grand, and I walked home with like 200 or 300 bucks. I feel like that was like that's pretty good. It was a good 3 days.
Hey, I'm happy that you were just positive the fact that you came back with the $200 or $300 in general,
Okay,
right?
like I
Like,
knew I was not going to be able to sit with the bigger dudes unless I spent some of the bigger dude money. Like,
yeah, hey, it's always all right to sit and watch. You don't have to spend the
well,
money.
yeah, I watched when I don't it wasn't you. No, it wasn't you. Oh, it was like I think it was Kevin Sanders that went to the casino. We went up to high rollers and just did $100 slots or
No,
whatever.
I was with you guys. That was
Yeah,
me, you
I,
and Nick and Jay and
yeah, I
Jay's
was like,
friend.
it wasn't you that brought out all the
Yeah,
money. It was just Kevin that was just like, yeah, fuck it, one,
yeah.
two.
Kevin didn't spend, I don't think. Not that I remember.
Was that
But
not
I think
Kevin? Oh God, who
Kevin
was
wasn't
that? That was
there. Uh-uh.
somebody.
It was Jay and Nick.
Oh, fucking Jay, dude.
Yes. Jay was
He's the
watching. Maybe
hardest
he'll
person
comment.
Jay's the hardest person to hang out with, and I talk to his assistant more than I talk to him.
He's like Locus. There's just somebody else running his
It took me a
profile.
while to figure out who was this assistant until he started talking about gaming. And so like me and Jay like had this conversation about gaming until he was like, "Oh yeah, this isn't Jay, you know this, right?" And it took me a while to actually put the link in between those. But now anytime I need something, I could just text his assistant and be like, "Yo, I need this," and he'll be like, "What color, what gigabyte, what size?"
I'm updating this little Facebook here.
Yeah, I almost missed it. I saw it was going and I was like, "Oh shit, I'm always late to these things. I got to be on time for once."
No, it's just funny. That's why I was actually just commenting. I told him not to worry about like joining like ASAP. Here he is actually. It's like because we're usually behind anyways, and I usually sit in here for like 10 or 15 minutes like by myself, and it's just kind of like hang out as like a couple people join. So I was telling him I was like, don't worry about it. But here we are, and we have quite a few people, Paul included, who just joined. So.
Who Pauls?
We we can get kicked off here a little bit. Perfect timing, Paul. We actually have a decent crowd actually for you. So I guess me
Really?
hyping you up.
Yeah, don't get too high. So I do like questions though. So if you guys have questions, I'll go through kind of like my normal little presentation. I guess maybe not presentation, but normal like talk, kind of what I do, information. I like to kind of get a little bit better idea, what is it that you guys all do, so I have a better idea of like business types and all that kind of stuff. So if you could just share that with me real quick so I kind of have a little bit
Yep.
of background in the group and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll get started. And then I love questions. So the more questions people have, I think the better off this all goes and it just carries over better for others that are listening down the road.
Yep, for sure. And I'll facilitate any questions from Facebook, stuff like that. But there's definitely more people that joined here. I assume that are probably going to want to hop on and ask questions as well. So primarily the background of most are going to be cell phone repair shop owners, or wholesalers of some sort of, electronic devices, multi-store owners, guys who are looking to either maybe buy additional stores or have one now looking to open two more, And just entrepreneurs, right? Some of these guys have other businesses. Some maybe, have two or three stores and they're not in the day to day. They have people running them and they're off doing another business. So it's kind of a little bit mixed, but I'd say our heavy majority is going to be just a typical business owner, store owner.
Okay, that sounds good. Um, so if it's cool with you, I'll just jump in and get
Yeah,
started.
definitely.
And I'll give a little bit of context and background on what I do, who I am, how we help businesses and the education things that you guys need to kind of be aware of. I think really be aware of, especially coming June 1st with the changes that are coming to the SBA, and I'll get into that because I think that's going to trickle down into the rest of business lending because there's a big crackdown that's coming that owners need to be aware of so you guys don't get caught up in the wash. So my name is Paul Childers. I own Blue Sky Bid Solutions. I live in a tiny little town, married a farmer's daughter. So we live in a town of 1,400 people. I've been blue collar most of my life working in automotive. I was a general manager for a Chevy store. So I've got commercial lending experience on vehicle loans and doing those under EINs for businesses, right? So providing no personal information when you go to get a loan for a vehicle. And that almost led to me buying my own dealership, but I realized that my time with my family was more valuable. So I got out of that. Was a sales director for a company that sold construction egg tires that grew from 16 mil to 44 mil a year in 2.5 years about. So I've got experience scaling companies. I've got experience where things break. I got experience where understanding when somebody goes, I need money, I always go, why? And what's broken that's making you feel like you need money? Right? So like what is actually going on in your business that is causing you to feel like your cash flow is not where it needs to be? And do you think that a loan or access to some form of capital would solve that problem? Right? So after I got out of that space, I started this company. We focused on business credit. I joined with a company called Jay Galt. Some of you may have run into them. I left Jay Galt fairly quickly because I didn't believe in what they were teaching, how they were teaching it. I thought it was very predatory. When I separated from that and opened this up under my own, I was a broker as well, a loan broker. What I learned from being a loan broker was that I have way too much control over how much money I make off of sending loans to people. And because of that, I could never really trust myself to give actual proper guidance to business owners on what actually makes sense for them to get into on a lending side of things because it was always going to be some form of loan connected to me directly so that I could make money on it. This is the inherent problem when you're working with online brokers, fintech companies like QuickBooks, Stripe, Bluevine, all that type of crap. And then also when you're working with banks, banks also have parameters that they have to work with. They're restricted and they're guided and they're told how to do things, and this is their box. But they can't always tell you what their box is, and so they just string you along forever. These are the kind of things that I've kind of accumulated over the times of being out in this space. So to kind of go back and context all this stuff, what actually is business credit, right? Like I think I see that kind of posted all the time on Facebook and Instagram, TikTok, like business credit. You get 250K per, financing, it's 0%. Get approved today. Like that's not business credit, that's credit cards. Those are business credit cards. Some of them are even personal, right? So like you're not actually building business credit with those because I think less than 2% of credit cards actually report. So if you don't get the right one, it's going to report to your personal and screw up your personal. And if you get the right one, it might work, right? It just depends on how you're set up. So your business credit score is actually a score that is like your personal credit score. Like honestly, like business credit works very similar to our personal credit. It's just a scoring for the banks and lenders to use to vet how much you can qualify for, how you handle your debt, what your debt capacity is, what your utilization is, and what your score out and pay history is for your business. They just score you more on how you pay. So if you pay late, it's going to penalize you far harder than if pay on time, or if you pay late on your personal, they give you a grace period. You don't get a grace period in business. So you got to really manage that stuff well. Business credit isn't sign up for an LLC and then go apply to all these different banks and you get a $50,000 loan on your LLC only. That isn't how it works. Banks have to see cash, collateral, or credit in order to get you an approval. Most new businesses don't have any of those because we made bad choices when we got into business or had our personal. So we don't have great personal, right? We don't have any collateral because of the type of business we started. And we definitely don't have any credit because most of us were young, dumb, and stupid and didn't manage our credit properly. So we're stuck there too, right? Like we've all been there. So how do you actually start getting, funding for your business, and how do you actually start building out business credit in a way for it to benefit you? And how do you protect your personal credit while you're doing that? And when should you go get a loan? These are all a lot of questions I get from business owners, right? I don't know how far along some of you guys are, but I'm guessing some of you who are entrepreneurs are startups or at some point in time have been a startup. If you're not generating, I always go on the side of if you're not generating at least $20,000 a month, you probably shouldn't get a loan, right? If you're 10,000 a month consistently and you're carrying money in your bank account consistently month to month, like 3 to 5K at the end of each month, you can maybe manage a loan. Most of you don't know your numbers well enough and don't understand your credit well enough that you shouldn't be taking loans out anyway because you can't articulate what you're going to actually be using that money for. How many of you at some point in time have been like, oh, I just need this credit card to go spend on marketing and I'll be fine? You get that credit card to spend on marketing, and next thing you know, you've got a maxed out credit card with 28% interest and you can't afford the monthly minimum payments because it's killing you. Because you didn't actually need marketing spend. What you actually needed was to fix your conversion rates because your sales process sucks. You don't follow up with people. You don't close deals fast enough. You keep things in the pipeline too long, right? Those are the types of differences that I tell people that, if you go talk to a lender, they're not going to stop you and tell you that stuff. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, we're going to get you into a loan to do this stuff. We position ourselves differently because what we've realized and what I've realized working with multiple companies is that the entire structure of your company matters when you go to get approvals. Your financials matter. Your cash flow matters. Your accounts receivable days, days on accounts receivable matters. How much money you have tied up in credit cards, lines of credit, equipment, that matters. You still have to manage utilization numbers on your business. You still have to understand where the breaking points are in your business. If your accounts receivable is getting out of hand, going and getting a line of credit isn't going to help you if you don't fix why that account receivable got out of hand in the first place. Honestly, you would probably be better off just taking whatever money you're going to apply for, setting it on fire, than you would be actually taking it out and trying to use it for your business, right? It's just going to compound your issue, and you're going to get into a very crappy cycle where now all you get approved for is short-term loans through QuickBooks or short-term loans through Stripe, or maybe you've gone and taken a merchant cash advance on your payment processing and they take 20% of your daily payments. But what they don't tell you on that is that part of that is 9% daily service fee, right? And then when you actually APR that out, you're actually paying 39% interest on top of that as well. So instead of just the 20% of your daily payments, it actually ends up being more closely, with all the money that goes into it, closer to 50 to 60% of those daily payments, which is why when you use it, you feel like you can never get ahead, right? Maybe some of you have taken out a working capital loan where it's been $20,000 over 12 to 18 months and it's a daily or weekly payment. And you get a factor rate that comes out on that at 1.42%. And you're like, oh, 222 a day. That ain't so bad. But when you APR that out, it's 49% interest on that money. And as that money keeps ticking through the week and you're not getting stuff coming in because you never fix your processes, all of a sudden that $222 a day becomes an absolute burden on you and drains you, kills your cash flow, and causes you to stay in this like cycle where you have to keep hitting that money to stay afloat, right? What we educate and what we teach on, and what I think more business owners need to understand, is that we can break those cycles simply by understanding our business better, which is why I love groups like this, because it really focuses on processes and systems and understanding your numbers than it does like cheats and how to get around things quick and how to leverage certain little tools to get ahead. Now, once you have stuff in place, business credit and having your numbers in order is that leverage that you need to be able to then scale up and grow quickly, because you can do it safely and you can do it controlled, right? Like those of you that have had multiple locations, and some of you can answer this later on, but like I'm guaranteeing that those of you that are probably doing higher 7 figures or even into 8 figures, if there are any on this call, and you have multiple locations, at some point in time, something clicked in your business through sheer luck, probably, or you found somebody that was able to coach you. And all of a sudden you had leverage. You were able to go access money when you didn't need it. You had banks and lenders coming to you with good terms. You knew how to manage your cash. Your cash flow was balanced out. Your inventory was under control. You didn't have a lot of stuff sitting around wasting money on your shelves, right? Taking up space. You were moving stuff quickly. And so all of these things started to work in sequence, and you were able to grow really rapidly because you weren't constantly fighting cash flow issues and bad loans and bad history and your personal credit score getting abused, right? So that starts by getting the basic principles of the business credit side of things into place. Most businesses, when they first start, get denied for loans because their personal credit sucks, but also because they didn't set their business up right. So when you go and applied for your first business credit card 6 months in, you got flagged 42 times because you were sitting in your home and you had a PO box set up as your mailing address. And PO boxes are like the highest used fraud system for new businesses or businesses outside the US to come in and use. And so the bank's algorithms saw that and they're like, nope, this has got to be some Czechoslovakian company that came over here and is trying to set up an account and get quick money and bail out and not have to pay this, right? Like, so don't set yourself up to fail before you ever get started. You're a new company. Set up a web page. I think you can get a new one-page website for like $500 or less, right? You can set up a Google profile. You can get a domain for $20. And then you can set up a Gmail address that says, hey, this is Paul at Blue Sky Biz Solutions, instead of running around with like phone sales or business credit sales at gmail.com. Like that type of stuff matters in the scheme of business credit. Set up a business phone number, even if it's your cell phone number, just go get it converted to a business line with Verizon. If you've got a CRM, most CRMs will integrate with different phone services like Twilio, Chirp, Ring Central. That's all authenticated business phone lines that when a bank underwrites you and goes and verifies this information you're putting in, these all come back and check the boxes as green. Whereas using your personal cell phone that everybody and their mom has access to doesn't. That all flags for red, right? Virtual offices, shared workspaces used to work really well. They're starting to crack down on that stuff in Google. Banks still look at those favorably. So there's like a balance. There's like a power struggle that's happening right now between like lending and like Google. Like Google's like in a fight with everybody. I don't know what their issue is lately, but they're just being a pain in everybody's butt. But they're still viable. What I would say is if you have a friend that has like a commercial building, just go see if you can rent a space in his commercial building for like $100 a month or something. And then you just use the address and set up a mailing address there with a port forwarding to the USPS to whatever address you want. Right. That's the way to bypass kind of the whole Google thing and still meet the lending the compatibility of the lender. If Google really isn't a big access point for your business, then use the virtual office or shared workspace. That'll work just fine. And you'll be all right there. So, but the other part of this is make sure all of your addresses and information matches. How many of you guys have changed locations? And I don't obviously won't see a raise of hands here, but I'm going to guess probably over 50 to 60% of you have as you're growing. How many of you changed locations multiple times? Right. And then
I will speak up on that. It's common. It is. Some places will stay for a long time if they find a good location. But to your point, yeah, I mean, they're switching sometimes, depending on the lease, anywhere from 1 to 3 years, because they'll find that maybe another spot doesn't work or something.
or a bigger spot, right? You grow so fast that you needed more space. How many of you actually went back to the Secretary of State, your bank accounts, your credit cards, your vendors, your suppliers, your card processing company, and updated your address? How many of you, if you pulled your tax returns right now from this year, well, how many of you have filed your tax returns this year? Number one, right? Like do that, right? Be on top of that stuff, please, for the love of God. And I'll go into more of that on the taxes. We got more fun stuff to go with there. But how many of you guys still have your original address, the business you started in, on your tax returns with the IRS? And you're not in that address anymore. Maybe you're 5 locations different. That's a problem, right? It's like when banks, lenders, vendors, creditors, suppliers, credit card companies, it doesn't matter. When they pull your information, they use a company called LexisNexis. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with LexisNexis. You can pay to get a LexisNexis report pulled on you. The data they have on you is scary. Like it's incredibly accurate, like how much information they have on you. So like when lenders pull that information, and of that 172 data points that they're confirming back and forth, if you get so many misses, it's like 3 strikes you're out almost, right? So like if you've got 7 different addresses, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 strikes you've already got because they can't identify where your actual address is working out of because you've got so much bad data out there on you. So if somebody's algorithm takes that into consideration when you go to get an increase or an approval on a credit card, you're never going to get an approval because you're just going to get auto denied because you got flagged so many times that they didn't even look at you. Our goal is to actually get you in front of a human or get you in front of a smarter AI system that can actually do a deep dive into your company to get you better approvals for more money or to also get you increases. How many of you guys have gotten increases or gotten approvals on credit cards, but have never been able to actually get like decent increases year over year? I see that all the time too. It's probably a lot to do with your data and your pay history, right? If you're using credit cards, how many of you are paying those off, especially Amex, before the actual statement due date on that thing so that you're not rolling any money over every month? Same with Chase, same with Capital One. I don't know how many of you guys use Capital One Sparks cards. Probably should knock that off, or at least make sure you pay before the statement due date is on those, or it's going to report to your personal credit, and your personal credit's going to go up and down like a roller coaster all the time.
That's the most common card that gets referred in our groups. Usually is the Spark card or probably the Chase Ink or Sapphire. I think those
Chase
two are
Ink is,
usually the most.
Chase Ink is great. Sapphire's all right. Capital One Spark, for 95% of you, it's going to report to your personal. And of the 95% of you that get it that report to your personal, probably 92% of you don't know how to manage credit cards. And so you're always going to carry high utilization on that because you're never paying that card off before the statement date is. So even if you pay it off by the pay date or the due date, the statement date's probably a couple days before. So if you were carrying over 30% utilization on that card past the statement date, that's the date that it reports to the bureaus. So you're sitting here paying the card off every month, but yet your utilization is still staying high and your credit's still staying in the low six or high sixes to low 700s. And you're sitting here going, I don't understand why this is happening. I pay my card on time. You need to pay it before the statement due date in order to make sure that you get that caught before the bureaus report to it. The better solution, just don't use Capital One. Go get an actual business credit card like Chase, US Bank, Wells Fargo Insights card is a good one. Bank of America. There are a lot of different cards that you can use in order to make to get this where it's not onto your personal. Bill and Divvy, also a really good card to use. It's a charge card. You still have to pay it each month, but it doesn't use your personal information to get an approval on it all. It's all done under your EIN. So that's how business credit is established, though, right? It's using these various sources, which there's only less than 7% of all the lenders, creditors, and vendors that are out there actually report to the business bureaus. So you have to ask, you have to kind of know who to go through, how to set it up, and use those sources and those credit cards in order to build out access to more money. Yes, net terms and net store credits, like they can matter, right? Like I tell people all the time, like I don't think Uline or Granger is like a great one, but I really love my Costco card. And I use that probably a lot for gray area stuff too, because I know, don't let this go to public, but I don't always put business stuff on there, right? Like there's some personal stuff that gets slipped in there sometimes, right? It just happens. My accountant doesn't appreciate it because it's more work for them, but whatever. But it's like knowing what ones to access. I have a Newegg account. That's a commercial account too. That's where I bought my stand-up desk. That's where I bought my computer through. That's where I bought my webcam through, my laptop. I did all of that on a commercial or a credit line with them that doesn't use my personal information at all. Right. And I started with that at $2,500. It's up to 15K now that I can do stuff with. I know clients that have that up to almost 50 to 60K because that's what they fill their stores with, right? That's where they buy all their electronic equipment for, all that kind of stuff, right? So an Amazon business account can help. That can help grow it. That's through Amex as well. So it's like all these little things, fuel cards. Even if you're just driving to your work every day, like just use a fuel card to fill your car up when you're going to work and then pay it off with your credit card or with whatever. And you start building business credit up, right? Because your whole goal is to be able to get access to more money that either doesn't report to your personal or if at a minimum doesn't affect your personal credit score unless you go delinquent or derogatory, right? The goal for everybody is having enough assets so that you can go get asset-based lines because then you don't ever have to worry about personal information being provided for loans. But most people, most businesses, unless you're over 10 mil a year doing $250,000 a month in spend, will never see that with credit cards. You will never get there with corporate cards, right? But there's little things you can do to get to certain aspects of off of your personal vehicles, some of these little vendor accounts that will open up access to more loans and lines of credit for you. Like, but you have to pay that stuff on time. You can't be late with it. And you have to treat it like your personal, right? It's not like I see people all the time. They're like, "Oh, I got access to all these store cards and all these vendor cards, and I just went and spent a bunch of money, and now I don't have to pay it back, or I can slow pay it." Well, now you can't go get another loan because your business debt to income is way too high. It's over 30% of your monthly revenue. So you still got to keep this stuff in order and keep it in line, but it's all meant to help leverage different aspects and to grow out your access to capital. And the more you do this and the higher you build your score and the cleaner you keep your business financials and the cleaner you keep your credit, the more access you can keep asking for from credit card companies and from lines of credit and from different banks. And then you just keep growing this out as you scale. One of the biggest mistakes I see business owners make is they never ask for reviews and increases in a timely sequence. So you might be in business for 5 years. When's the last time some of you have actually asked your credit card company for a review and to have an extension? Right? Like that's like a really simple thing. Maybe some of you are really good at it. Maybe some of you aren't. If you've been denied for it before, I'm guessing, or if you've been denied for it multiple times, my guess is you probably just like, screw it. It doesn't matter. But if you actually went and looked at your information and the fact that you've got 15 different addresses out there on you is why you never got the increase. So if you take a little bit of time to clean up your data, chances are you're probably going to get the increases you wanted. If you can't articulate your profit loss statement and your balance sheets and you can't articulate your cash flow, chances are you're never going to get an increase because you don't know how to present your business to a lender in a positive way because you don't even understand your business. It's like all these little pieces of your business come into culmination together to be able to get you guys access to really good money. This is how you get access to cheap money with longer terms and more upfront amounts, right? With lower interest rates. I'm guessing there's probably a few of you guys just knowing that the way the cell phone and the wholesale space works in consideration to my guys that sell watches and my guys that get gold and jewelry are probably ripping stripe loans constantly because it's easy and you feel like you're getting ahead on it and it doesn't take a bunch of time and effort to go get approvals. Would I be fair to say that there's probably 30 to 45% of you in here that rip those daily or weekly? Easiest way to get inventory. Don't tell me I'm wrong. And when you calculate out the numbers, you're like, oh, all I got to do is sell like 22 phones this week and I'll be just fine.
The amount of people that take those Square, Stripe loans, stuff like that, based on processing, similar to the PayPal, working capital loans, that just like you said earlier, that don't need them or have no, real need or use for it, and then just go spend it because like, oh, it's free money, and like they think it's going to work out, and in the end, by the time they hold inventory too long and end up losing, and they pay the extra interest and all the fees, it's like, oh, damn, maybe that wasn't a good idea after all, but.
Yeah. Or even if you do it and you sell the inventory in a timely manner and you do all this stuff, and then you get to the end of the month and you're like, damn, I'm still broke. I paid my loan off. I did this, I did that, but we didn't factor in all the additional expenses of those loans on top of everything else. So that even though we sold what we thought we had to, we still didn't sell enough to get ourselves back out of that hole. So now you just roll into the next month praying to God that there's going to be a couple more sales so that you don't have to worry about how to scrounge money up for your mortgage, right? Because I know all of us have done that before, right? Like we just go screaming into the next month and we're like, well, negative $1,500 in the bank. Hopefully tomorrow morning I wake up and I got enough in there to cover my, my mortgage and my payments and stuff, right? That's the cycle we want to break. And you start breaking that by putting these little processes into place. You start breaking that by really paying attention and being very intentional about what you're doing, how you're spending money, where you're spending your money, and where you're going to get loans through, right? And that honestly, like I find that separates most businesses from the ones that continue to struggle. The guys that are willing to get really curious about their financials. Hey, we're doing this gross and I feel like my net should be this, but at the end of every month, I still feel broke. Where is this money going? I just had a client right now that he's over the last 4 months, he's done about $450,000 in gross with a net of about 75,000 on it, right? And he's like, I don't understand where this money's going. And what we found out from the net was that he's doing a bunch of additional expenses onto his credit card because he can't get ahead on his credit card payment because he maxed it out a few couple of years ago, and he's never been able to get completed. His credit's still not bad, but he's never attacked it head on and gotten out of it, right? So like that's bleeding him out every single month on top of a few other like just random things that he's, oh, I need a few extra money dollars so wife and I can go to the restaurant. So you just own a distribution to yourself, right? We've all done that too. So just really be mindful of all those things because that's going to matter a lot more moving forward for loans than it is right now. That kind of leads me into, as of June 1st of 2025, the SBA is drastically cracking down on who they loan to, who they're going to allow as preferred lenders, and the criteria that they're going to look at for businesses. So number one is you have to be able to prove that you're a US citizen, because apparently the government's been giving SBA loans to non-US citizen, non-US based businesses for the last whoever knows how long, and they've been defaulting on them at a high rate because they don't need to pay them back because nobody knows where they're actually at, which is wild to me. The PPE and EIDL loan period from COVID, I can't even imagine the amount of people that took money and just disappeared to different islands and stuff. You're never going to collect it back, right? So they're really cracking down on that. You have to be able to show 12 months of clean financials. You have to show 12 months of clean credit history. You have to show 12 months of never taking out a short-term loan like Stripe or QuickBooks or any kind of MCA, right? Because the SBA will not coexist with any of those short-term lenders on there anymore. That's a no-go with them. So clean financials, good credit, never using short-term loans, history of running your business well. They're going to be starting to get pretty strict about the 2 year in business piece. You can still get startup SBA loans, but you have to have absolutely immaculate credit in order to do that. So it's just going to get harder to access money. Well, what's the trickle down effect of this? Well, that means that more banks are going to be going more traditional, and they're going to become more conservative with the loans that they give out. So you're going to have to clear more hurdles. You're going to have to worry more about, is this a bank that even understands my type of business? Do they even want to do business with me in the first place? And if they do want to do business with me, am I showing them a good enough picture of my business and presenting them a clean enough painting of what we do, how we manage our money and all that stuff to make them want to give me a loan? And if you can't articulate those things, chances are you're not going to see approvals. So it's going to become even more important now moving forward for everybody to just, for one, for the love of God, go find a bookkeeper and pay them, and find a good one, right? Go find an accountant that actually understands your business and doesn't just tell you to just say, oh, we'll write everything off and not show profit. Don't do that. That's terrible. That is the worst tax strategy you can have in the history of the world. Showing profit isn't a bad thing. You want a tax strategist that can show profit for lenders and basically show the IRS that you've made nothing, right? That's the goal. But if you have to pay in, that's okay because it shows you're running a viable business. If you've been showing losses for the last 3 years and you go to apply for a line of credit or you go to apply for an SBA loan, you're going to get denied because you've never shown that you've made any money in your business. So why would they lend to you in the first place? You may have, but you wrote everything off so that you didn't have to pay any taxes. And now you can't get a loan to expand, or you can't get a commercial real estate loan because you literally can't prove that you've made money, right? So be careful about that stuff. Keep your things separated, right? Just keep everything clean. Don't just automatically take money from your business account and throw it into your personal. If you're going owner distributions because you're not an S corp yet, mark it. I would even say take your business account and move it to an entirely separate bank than wherever your personal is, so that you have to physically transfer via check or via ACH, owner distributions or owner payroll, so that you have a very clear path of what that all is. So it keeps a nice clean financial record for the lenders, SBA, and for you. You won't pillage yourself as much that way. I'm guilty of it. I had my business bank account with my personal for a while. And what I did was I caught myself like a few months ago. I was like, holy shit, like we just spent like $19,000. What the hell? And it was just like just mindlessly like transferring money over and not really even thinking about it, right? And I was just like, okay, this stops. So I went and moved my business bank into a completely different bank, and now that stopped, right? Because it wasn't I could just log in and just move money and be like, hey, we're good. So all those little things are going to affect your company's ability to get loans. The way you set yourself up, if you are a LLC and you are netting over $100,000 a year, you should probably be an S corp. S corps and corporations in general are always going to be looked at more friendly than LLCs, and they're always going to be looked at more friendly than sole proprietorship. So if any of you just started a business and you're doing a sole proprietorship, go get an LLC, pay the 400 or whatever dollars it is in your state to get that set up and become a legitimate business, right? For those of you that have multiple locations, you need to designate one of those locations as your corporate office, and that's where everything needs to be established and set up out of. If you've got multiple locations and you've got credit cards and you've got payment processors and you've got stuff with all these different locations on them, you need to corporatize that and get it into one actual location, because now you have accurate, cohesive data, right? You can still have satellite locations, but from a lender perspective, they want to know where's your corporate office out of, right? So keep that stuff organized and clear. Structure your companies in ways that are going to protect you. So if you're actually owning the property and owning the land that the buildings are on, if you actually own those, I would even recommend owning those in a separate company and then lease them back and forth to each other, right? Because that is giving you another level of protection. Then I just had a conversation with the guy today. He owns his property and his personal, and he leases it back to his business. And I'm like, what happens if an employee falls and hurts themselves and sues you? You just gave an easy in for a lawyer to come after everything, and your umbrella policy is not going to cover you. So don't do that stuff. Structure, keep it clean, keep it organized. It makes lending easier. It'll make you sleep better at night. Our entire purpose of our company is peace of mind at the end of the day. Peace of mind that the loans you're taking out have a lower risk of coming back and affecting you in a negative way. Peace of mind that if something happens in your storefront, right? You guys have, I'm sure a lot of you guys have a lot of clients that come through your doors, right? Like peace of mind knowing that if somebody trips and busts their leg or busts their ankle or does something stupid, that you're protected from potentially losing everything, right? Use your business, use your structures, use that all to make sure that you're nice and in this nice little protective shell, and work with good CPAs and lawyers that help you understand that. Ask questions. The more you know and the more you understand, the better off you're going to be. So if you don't understand why you need to do something a certain way that a CPA tells you, ask them until they can explain it to you in a way that makes sense to you. If you don't understand why a bank wants to collateralize your home, ask them until you understand why they want to do that, right? Like just push back. That's honestly all you need to do. Like I've told a lender before, talk to me like I'm 3, because I don't know, you're talking over me. You're talking in terms that I don't understand. I'm just some little dude that lives out in a town of 1,400 people. And then I have ownership in an HVAC and plumbing company. I'm a simple guy. Like you're talking to me like I'm some corporate banker. Like talk to me like I'm a 3-year-old that just pounded a pixie stick. I just saw a question in the chat. CPA or bookkeeper, you need both, and they should be separate. They should not be done by the same company. Why is that? Well, that's a check and balance point. And honestly, as you get bigger, you should also have a fractional CFO, and that fractional CFO should not be offering you bookkeeping company services, or if they do, it should be done from an entirely different like employee set that they have, so that there are checks and balances. At a minimum, the CFO and a bookkeeper can be from the same company, but then the CPA should be separate. You need to have checks and balances so that they're doing things in a way that is getting caught, so that some way down the line, you don't hire somebody that does it poorly and then find out that you owe like $1.2 million in back taxes because they didn't file things properly. Right. So, because that's not a surprise that I ever want to wake up to. I don't think anybody does. I didn't even like waking up to the fact that I have to pay 20K in taxes this year. Right. That wasn't fun either. So those things matter. Same with like, there's a lot of lenders that are out there right now, a lot of brokers. There's a lot of brokers that do loan brokering that are offering bookkeeping services and CPA services and stuff. Stay the hell away from them, right? Because it's too easy for them to manipulate things to go get you approvals for loans without you ever knowing that they manipulated it. That's a combination that I would never put myself in bed with, right? Because there's so much that can be wrong, manipulated. taken advantage of. So stay away from that. There's new stuff coming out in the business credit world where there are companies that are popping up that are telling you that they can get you guaranteed approvals simply by getting your data manipulated to match the algorithms for the lenders. If you hear terms like that, don't sign up for their programs. If you hear them say that they can offer you aged shelf corps with trade lines on them already established to help get you approvals faster, stay away from them. That is a extremely gray area in the lending space that has been outlawed in most cases, and most of them are not doing things legally. So eventually that's going to blow up and get called out, right? Like, and if you are part of that, or if you've signed up and used one of those services with the new policies in the SBA, if they catch that in an audit, you are blacklisted from the finance world, which means good luck ever getting a loan ever again, right? So if something doesn't seem right, or if something seems too easy or too good to be true, it's probably a good time to just pause and really think about, is this what it's actually saying it is, or what could potentially go wrong? So overall, that's really kind of the overall kind of topic I have for you guys, but I would love to be able to open this up for questions if there's specific situations that you're in, specific things that have happened to you that you want to know about. Why did this happen? How do I fix it? Like, this is a great time for that to come up.
While we'll wait for those to come in, I will speak from personal experience of doing many things that Paul is advising you guys not to do. And I will second that. I have done loans through On Deck. I have done Blue Vine invoice factoring. I mean, I've done it all in the past. Whenever I first started business, when I sold parts, and just like you said, it all seems doable. I've done all the PayPal working capitals, the stuff that you get pulled out weekly. Or I never had a daily one, but we had a lot of weeklies, and a lot of them were doable. But like it was just a matter of looking at it like, okay, here's how much we normally do. Can we afford this? And will this help us get somewhere? And generally speaking, it looks good on paper, right? And you don't think about that compounding effect that it has if your business doesn't stay on that scale of growth. You don't continue to get extra money. So those days that you don't get that extra sale, you start falling behind, right? So you're not getting that additional income that you were expecting to cover that. And that it easily will make you fall behind. And we've done a lot like that. So I can definitely speak to don't get yourself into those. I still get tons of text messages, at least, daily, if not weekly, from random MCAs. Hey, you're approved for whatever, just text just now. We'll get you funded by tomorrow, whatever. Don't do it, guys. Don't do it.
Yeah, I'm still convinced that some of those companies are directly tied to some form of old mafia families as well. Like I've got a client that we're trying to get out of an MCA, and his broker has called him like 3 times since we've been like winding it down and not renewing. And it was like, hey, like if you don't like pay us the rest of this by now and take out this next loan, like he goes, I know the route that your wife and your kids take every day. And I'm like what? Like what kind of a threat is this? Like it's just wild stuff, man.
Uh,
Stay away from them.
Yeah, yeah, that and just like you said, 100% agree. CPA, bookkeeper being separate, you don't want that. Like I've definitely seen it happen firsthand, and I went separate for the same reasons. You see the conflicting areas there, and that's a big struggle. I think I see a lot of people in our industry always are. I wouldn't say necessarily trying to do stuff themselves, but you'll see the questions in the groups often of, oh, what are you guys doing for a CPA or a bookkeeper? And it's like questions that not that you shouldn't really be asking in the groups, but it's like, all right, like we can't guide you like the right way, but you need to find somebody local to you, preferably that you can sit down with, that you can explain, at least in person, that they understand your business and what you're doing and are able to help you strategize a little bit more. But not
Yeah,
everybody has that ability either.
Can I
correct.
ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, step up.
So bookkeeper specifically for pretty much what? Just keeping account of the finances through the month and expenditures, and then CPA to tell you how to spend your money.
So they're going to be checks and balances, right? So the bookkeeper is really just going to keep your charts organized, like super. They should be very detailed, organized accounts. They're going to categorize them properly. They're going to put them into the right spots, whether they go on the top of the profit and loss statement or in the bottom, where they go on the balance sheet. Do they even belong on the balance sheet? And then your CPA should actually be checking that stuff to verify, yep, this is right. Or, hey, why did this get moved over here? This should actually be over on this side. Or why did payroll get allocated into this slot this month, but last month it was a fixed expense, right? Like those are the types of things that we should be doing. And if you have a really good CPA, they should also be doing a little bit of tax strategy with you, right? So that they should be talking through you at the start of the year of like, hey, you're trending this way. We need to start doing some more here. You need to payroll yourself a little bit more. You need to do a little bit more expenditures. Like, here's some things that you can do to start kind of lowering your tax burden by the end of the year. That's stuff that your bookkeeper can't be doing. Your bookkeeper should really just be helping you keep a very organized, structured chart of accounts and have a very clean P&L and L and do all your reconciling. You can do that stuff yourself, but I don't know about you guys. Usually by the end of the day, when I have to sit down and had to do that stuff on my own, I would either fall asleep or start playing video games or whatever, right? Anything but what I needed to be doing. So I just found it was easier to pay, I don't know, 350 to 450 bucks a month to have somebody do that for me, right? That's why you want to keep those two separate.
Agreed. Yeah, I think a lot of the misconception is people just not knowing the difference, right? Of, what was a CPA do that a bookkeeper doesn't or vice versa. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of get confused. They're like, well, why do I need both? Why can't, I just have one person? I think they just look at like, in our industry, you try to simplify it, I guess, because you're trying to buy parts from like you want to simplify your life as a repair shop of buying all your stuff from one supplier. Because if there's issues, you're only dealing with one person. But if one supplier doesn't have a part, then you gotta go to somewhere else, and you're splitting your orders up. And it's like everybody just tries to single file, like, oh, I only want to buy all my devices from one place. Like
Yep.
there's people that, that even if you have everything except one that they need, no, we need it all, or that's just how they are, right? And it's just
Yeah.
I think you just build your ways and your systems and you stick to it, right? Like I'm not going to get mad at somebody for sticking to what they, the processes they built, they're holding to it at least. But
Yep. But that's the that like it's not the problem. I mean, that's a good process to have because the cleaner you keep things, the better off it is. The more
yep,
simplified it is, the better it is. Um, but then we just seem to overcomplicate it in like other areas, right? Or we make the mistake of like, oh, my family member does this for this place and they can do this for me. No, a family member should never be helping you on your financial side of your business because they're never really going to have the right way to communicate with you without feeling like they are going to offend you or cause any issues. So then your books are going to be dumb, right? Or like
yep,
just keep family members out of like the financial side of your business unless somebody's a certified CPA. But even then, I still recommend going and finding somebody that's not your family for that specific function of your business.
yeah. No, that's definitely the biggest piece. And I think the biggest thing that we see in this industry is a lot of people are typically I wouldn't say natural entrepreneurs, but these were hobbyists that kind of fell into business, right? That they're like, oh, this is, more than just a side hustle. I can, make a living doing this, and they kind of fall in, but they don't learn or they don't have a mentor or anything to kind of understand how to kind of scale as they grow that and do things. So there's always a lot of broken processes along the way, and feel like they just kind of, put some band-aids on stuff just to get by, right? Like just like you said, how many people are updating the, addresses with the state or anywhere, right? If they move or anything at all, your registered agent. If you don't have a registered agent, like if you're not updating that, your members, anything, right? Like people probably don't even file their annual reports. There's just so many different things. And it's like if you don't know about it, you don't have somebody there to help guide you. You don't know about it. Like there's no way for you just to like automatically know. You're just kind of guiding yourself through entrepreneurship, right? So without the guidance, you're kind of just stuck. So that's
Yep.
why I think these calls have actually helped a lot of people. Chris, who was just asking the question, actually can attest to, a lot of these calls we've had of helping him figure out different things and understand different things with his business as he's growing. And it
Yeah.
just helps the other aspect of, seeing it from other angles of people who've already went through it, maybe stuff
It's
like
truly one of
that.
those it's truly one of those things where like you really don't know what you don't know, right? And I'm guessing at some point in time, some of you in here have gone to a local bank or a credit union to try to get a loan out, and just off of what you know, like you're like, wow, everything looks good, like we've got good cash flow, my credit's decent, I should get an approval, and all of a sudden it's like they drag you out for 3 to 4 weeks, you never hear anything back, and then you go and you're like, hey, what's up? And they're like, we couldn't get you approved. Right, because they sat down with their board of directors and they reviewed your files and they had already allocated the amount of money that they wanted to loan that month out to businesses that were in industries that they preferred. And your business, because if you're in like, especially if you're in like the cell phone, like wholesaler trading or replacement and part space, it's like they don't understand that business. Matter of fact, like most banks don't really understand most businesses, especially businesses that have higher AR, accounts receivable, subcontract pay, or just kind of weird pay cycles. Like bankers don't really do well at reading profit loss statements and balance sheets, right? So if you're not able to articulate your business model in a good way to them to help them understand how you actually collect and get cash, you're never going to get approved. On top of that, though, if you keep going to the wrong lenders, you're always going to run into a situation where you're never getting extended capital that you could use to be able to grow and scale your company. So like knowing who to go through and how to talk to them and present yourself is also a huge part of like getting access to more leverage, if you will, to grow.
Yeah. That's, I think, a lot of these guys, and I think it varies on their needs, their wants, and, their goals. Everybody's a little bit different. There's some guys that are trying to open, multiple locations that maybe have one now or two right now, and looking to scale to three or four, whatever. But there are some guys that are, happy with their one and they want to just focus on scaling that one, but also to scale it, it might require, okay, we're selling a few phones a month, but we want to sell, more phones or more iPads, more MacBooks. And then it's like, oh, we need to have more capital for inventory. So that's where a lot of the variables come in, where it could be somebody looking to just scale their inventory, their offerings, or it could be somebody looking to open a new location, or even just in general, like I said, some of these guys, I don't know if he's still on here. Yeah, Amir, he's on here. He's got, his stuff going. He's had other side businesses as well. And I think just understanding how they can, build upon this and leverage it for just more than what they're doing now to kind of, maybe scale another side hustle or a new business venture while the other one's kind of operating. But nobody is asking questions, which is very surprising considering how many people were, actually showed up today to listen. At least they showed up to listen, but I definitely expected a lot more questions of people, especially once you mentioned the Spark card and
Yeah.
people not understanding, right? Like, that's why I've tried from what I've learned from seeing you talk of certain things. When everybody's like, oh, what credit card should I have for my business? And it's like, you guys, like, a lot of people misunderstand the fact that just because it says it's a business credit card, you're still putting in your social security number somewhere, most likely, and that's not going to be a true business card at that point, right? It's not, it's going to report back. It's asked for a personal guarantee on you, more than it is your business at that point.
If you read the actual contract when you go to sign up for a credit card, it's usually like 2 or 3 lines down. It's not, you don't have to look super hard. It'll talk about your personal credit, and the wording you want to use for that is or look for is this is using your personal information for reference. That means that they're just doing a soft pull on you to see what you are. Your personal guarantee is going to be on there just as a basically verification that you are who you say you are. And those won't typically report to your personal credit. The ones that say this is for an approval, those are the ones you really want to watch out for, because those are the ones that are going off of your personal credit to get you an approval on that card. They're not actually using your business information at all. It's all based off of your personal information, right? So you got to be really careful with those and read them close to really understand what they're doing. Same with like loans. Understand like what the UCC filings are. Like if you go to get a line of credit, or you go like let's say you just bought some racking for your place for storage and shelving for your store, right? And the bank says, "Oh, we got a universal UCC filing on this." That means that they're actually collateralizing all of your assets, not just your business. They're actually using your personal as well. what you should be looking for is they should be putting a UCC filing on the equipment and inventory only. It's like that's where like you need to stop and be able to push back on that so that you don't get into like these situations where banks are collateralizing more than they should. But you also should be checking your business credit reports when you get loans paid off because a lot of times they won't take the UCC filings off of you. So you have a lot of dead UCC filings that are against you that can affect your ability to go get loans. Those need to be removed. So
I would be willing to bet that 99.5% of people that will watch this or are on this right now don't even know what a UCC filing is.
the UCC filing is just basically the bank stating like it's a universal credit collateralization is what it really ends up being. What does that mean? Well, that just means that if you default on payments or if you default on your business, you go out of business, you sell your business, they have a right to collateralize or capture any of that sale of that business or the bankruptcy filings before you can get out of it, right? So they're just putting their stamp on working this stuff. What you don't want is you don't want that stuff to be able to go after your personal assets, right? It's like UCC blanket filings are really bad because they're actually stating that they can come after your house first or in whatever order they basically want to. So be careful about how you sign those. The other piece of that is you want those off of your business reports because it's like on your personal, you got a bunch of inquiries, right? Or you got a bunch of old loans and stuff on you. That's like your business. So if you got a bunch of open UCC filings against you, that you don't actually owe money for anymore. Other lenders are looking at that as like, why do you have all this other debt on your account? We can't give you like their active inquiries essentially. It's like make sure that stuff is getting closed out and eliminated so that it's not hindering your ability to get more money.
Question, and some probably don't know what this is either, but is there still a lot of significance to a DUNS number still?
So Duns is becoming less of a player in the game. About 2 years ago, a bunch of Duns employees split off from Duns and founded a company called Moody. Moody is coming up as a more viable and more proactive bureau in the system. They're not necessarily a total active bureau yet, but they're tracking and monitoring more active accounts than Duns is right now. Most major lenders pull and use business Experian more than they do anything else. So Experian files actually get weighed a lot more heavier than your Duns and Bradstreet's file. When the government got rid of Duns being a primary use of facilitation for government contracts, Duns kind of fell to crap. Is it still important? Yes, because they have the most historical data out there. Is it the most viable one that's out there? Not necessarily. PayNet through Equifax is starting to come up and be a little bit more relevant, but they're such a crappy bureau that it's like not many people use them yet because they're just hard to get information from, but they're starting to become more prevalent too. So it's, yeah, DUNS is still important in and of the fact that it's still a big data facilitator. So the more accurate your stuff is with them, the better off you're going to be. But relevant wise, I care more about what's on somebody's Experian file than I do in their DUNS.
Um, since I'll have plenty of questions just because I at least know some stuff a little bit to get dangerous. That might be able to at least help some people that don't know what to ask. Like tier one, tier two type of trade lines, like you were talking earlier about like shelves and stuff, for example, Uline. I think there's like a Crown Packaging. There's some like different like stuff out there like that for having like let's say a net 30 account for. Do those truly seem to help your business credit as you kind of get reported on from those with successful transactions, right? You can't just open it up. I think you actually need to have transactions on there, correct? Or
Yeah. Yep. So you got to use it, number one, right? So do they really help to a point, right? But the problem where they don't help is if you just continuously use tier one and tier two ones and never actually open up to tier three, right?
right, yeah.
Or if you have a ton of tier ones, but you never open up enough tier twos, like that's where people really go backwards on this stuff is they don't know how to progress through. And some of it takes time because honestly, like you can't get to tier two until you get certain things structured and reorganized in your company. So like, sometimes if you're dealing with the RS, it can take 40 to 60 days just to get a letter back from them that says the information's been updated and you're good to go. It can take 10 to 20 days to get a dispute filed to get addresses merged and Experian or DUNS. It can take that much time to get disputes and get old or bad data off. And once you do that, if you miss the report cycle, now it takes another 20 to 15 days in order for it to catch up. It's like, people try to do things so quickly when in reality, it's a process of consistency and longevity that you see the most results with business credit. The problem with people with business credit is they just try to do it in the tiered way, and then they just get stuck in this tier one and tier two loop and never see major progress because they don't know how to break that and get out of there into better loans. So there is viability to them. If they're ones that like they're not going to benefit you if you buy stuff through them, then don't use them. Like use ones that you're actually going to use and spend money through. That's why I love the fuel card option. That's why I love Costco, right? That's why I like having like my Home Depot one because I buy a lot of stuff through Home Depot for stuff. That's why I like having my Newegg because that's where I get all my electronics from. So like I'm using those constantly. But if you're just going to get something to get it, then get like an e-credible or where you can report your utilities or get like a Credit Strong where you can just set up a pay line where it just reports to business bureaus, and then at the end of that term you just get the money back plus interest, right? But it reports. So the more you use things that actually benefit your company, the better it's going to be because it's going to grow in a holistic way, and those trade lines are going to match your actual company needs as well.
Yeah, yeah. I knew there was a little bit of difference between like the tiers and stuff. But yeah, I mean, to your point, if you just kind of stick around to the low level and you don't try to keep growing, you're just gonna be stuck down there. So that makes sense. Trying to think of anything else, at least off the top of my head. Tony, welcome. Do you have questions? You've missed most of it, but
I missed most of it. Sorry.
you're
You'd
good.
have to. I don't want you to give me a recap. I know
Yeah.
we were talking about hi, Paul. Tony Baker, the owner and founder of GSM Warehouse. We're a distribution company that supplies most of these guys and other cell phone repair shops with electronics and devices on a wholesale level. So we're B2B, and I own 14 cell phone repair shops in the Tampa Bay area. Been in the industry for over 15 years. Speaker at some of these expos, and I am Josh's girlfriend on Fridays at 4 p.m.
He is. He is my official handoff guy. I've got softball practice in the
Right.
next few minutes, so I do have to bail. So I always rely on him taking over for me if we're
Yeah,
still
no. So
carrying
you see
over
what he did there? You see what he just did?
the
Yep.
intro.
He got me going and then boom, he's out.
Yeah, he's gonna sneak out. His camera goes black and off he goes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
I'll
I'm
be here
I'm
for
the,
a few
I'm the
minutes.
hype man.
Yeah, that's
I'm the
right.
hype
You
man.
do keep a conversation going, and that's what's good. That's needed. I can't
I
talk to
agree.
myself all the time. So
Yeah,
Gets
yeah,
boring. Look, you got
yeah.
7 people on board and no one's
Hey,
talking.
dude, that's what I'm saying. You would be surprised, Tony. There was like nine of us on here
There he is.
before like 10 after 3, and there was plenty of people on live. I told Paul I was excited because this is the most people that have shown up early. I didn't have to wait for people to show up. And then now it's like everybody's quiet. Nobody wants to ask questions. I'm like, how's everybody on here not wanting to ask questions now?
well, it happens almost every time I'm on like calls like this. Like a lot of times people just don't know what time of questions to ask. They don't, so I try to encourage that kind of stuff. But honestly, it's one of those things where it's like there's no shame if you're in a crap situation of just saying, "Hey, like I'm stuck. Like what can I do?" Because I guarantee you that there are probably multiple other people that are in your current situation that are too afraid to ask because they're embarrassed.
Do you know what
But
happened, Paul? They know that Tony will ask the question for them because I don't leave nothing on the table. So they know I own retail stores. So I went through the same experience and I'm bold enough to ask the question on the retail level, on the customer level, and on the wholesale level. So when they
yep,
got somebody like Tony who asked 10 out of 10 questions, why should they ask? They just sit
yeah,
there and listen.
yep,
I think that's what happens. I'm leaving them no room to ask the question because all their question gets answered and asked by me.
yeah,
So unfortunately, but I have probably one of the reasons why I got to where I'm at is I do ask questions.
Yep.
If you don't know, ask a question. I think knowledge is key. While we're talking about financials, I think since Josh started this roundup thing, I can tell you, one name for now, Chris. He got his probably paperwork done and his CPA and his payroll done properly since we started this. So if we were able to make one change that I'm aware of from Chris's point of view, and I can tell you there's so many of these guys that did listen, probably acknowledge the mistake they were doing. They don't want to talk about it because it's financial, but they fixed it. I can tell you a lot of these guys were living off, just a debit card in the wallet and just swiping as you go from your own business. A lot of them did not have payroll. A lot of them did not have P&Ls. A lot of them paying employees either cash or didn't even do tax write-offs on their cars, on their purchases, on their trips, such as like the expos or the GREs that were going down to Miami in 2 weeks. So a lot of people didn't even know a lot of these things until we started doing these talks. You could talk so much to the point that I think I started my first, we call it Tony Talk Show. I had a Tony Talk Show since 2016 or 17 in the group here. And since that day, I cannot stress it enough on how many times I've said, please hide your devices at night. And there we go. Last week, somebody got posted, the store got broken into, and all their inventory was taken. So it's for now almost 9 years or 8 years, I've said 10 minutes, put your phones in the safe at night.
We just had an episode. We just had an episode about it. Talked about it for a whole day.
I messaged the guy and I said, yeah, man, I fucked up. Lesson learned. Like, does it have to be you until you learn your lesson and lose $10,000 or $20,000?
But to your point, like that's a lot of the commonality between this and like the credit side of stuff is like the way you use your LLC, your corporation, your business credit is to hide your personal assets from things to go wrong, right? Like especially you guys that own multiple storefronts, like if you don't have those held in separate holding companies and you don't have the financials and the credit and everything set up to keep that stuff separate, you're one freaking greedy customer that falls and comes across a slimy claims lawyer of losing all of your shit in like a blink of an eye. And I just don't think people really are aware of how thin of a line we walk sometimes when we don't structure ourselves up around, or when we commingle our personal expenses with our personal or our business finances, right? Like it's just, we just go and we just do stuff, right? Everybody that started a business, we're just like, hey, I need to go get money for this. And you just throw it on whatever you wanted to at that time. It was probably a personal credit card or a personal loan, whatever, right? And you didn't realize how much actual exposure and risk you were carrying if something went wrong. And so that's really, I love that you bring that up because it's the same principle. It's just like protect yourself by taking a little bit of time out and structuring things properly. So if God forbid something does happen and goes wrong, you're not going to be taking the brunt of it, not just on your business, but all of your personal assets, right? Like
audits. Let's talk about audits. I know people that got audited and got fined for purchasing cleaning supplies from a specific place for their business, and they did not register under their business. So a lot of people purchase things and do a tax write-off on that item. So you can go to Sam's Club, for example. I would own a warehouse, right? And I would go grab coffee and I would grab paper towels and I would grab specific things. If certain things you can, if you're buying it to use for your business, to my knowledge, you cannot, if I'm correct, you cannot do tax, you cannot remove the tax. But if you're reselling it, then yes, you can say this is for a business and they won't charge you tax on it. So I know people that got audited for small things that they bought things out of Home Depot And when they asked for statements to the banks for that year, they got fined for buying the wrong item. It doesn't have, I'm not sure what the specific item, but the idea is educating yourself on what to buy, which card to put it on. That is it tax write-off able or not? And you have to, like, the minute you get out of it. I know someone who just paid $120,000 in fines, not knowing what to or what did he buy on the card, because he was using his debit card for work onto personal things, and you get
Yep.
audited for that.
Yep. Yeah, it's the cleaner you keep your stuff, the better off you're going to be. That's also from a lending side too, right? Like the easier it is for an underwriter to read and understand your business and your financials, the easier it is for them to give you approvals. So taking time and getting that stuff clean, organized, really understanding your own business so you can articulate it to the lender, that gives you a better opportunity of attaining, because it gives you a better opportunity of attaining lines of credit. It just gives you more flexibility, right? Also understanding the type of loan that you want to use. Right? If you're like, hey, I do business to business stuff, there are lenders that will actually do inventory, like lines of credit for you, that other loans or banks won't do because you aren't business to consumer, right? It's like knowing where to go, who to talk to, how to present. That's all part of this stuff. And it's all a part of protecting your personal assets at the end of the day, protecting your personal credit so you can use it to go buy that home you've wanted, to go do those things you've wanted to do on your personal side. That's really take a little bit of time and restructure yourself so that you're protected and set up for success.
A lot of people are not knowing that they can, and we spoke about this before, tax write-offs. You can drive the right, you'll see a lot of people driving, nice cars, G-Wagons and big pickups and whatnot. And you're like, this guy just opened a business. How is he able to drive that car? And we spoke about this in previous videos, tax write-offs. If you have the right CPA, if you have the right bookkeeper, you can live on the level that you want. Tax write off from your business. You're bringing income, as long as your papers are done properly. I think you can live the life you want, become, be a business owner or CEO of a business. And I think organization, like you said, play your cards right, organize your cards, and that's the safest way to be successful in this country as well.
Yep. 100%. 100%.
Give me a little recaps on what you and Josh, what do you do specifically, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So my specific niche that we work in is helping businesses get off of using their personal credit for everything. So we really look at how to use business credit, but then also how do you go and use that to get in with the right lenders? How do you understand what lenders are asking for? How do you position yourself so that you can push back? Our company is not a direct lender. We have a lot of affiliates. Our goal is to help put the leverage into the business owner's hands so that when you go get a loan, you can confidently walk in or walk out knowing that you're going to get an approval from somewhere else and you don't have to take loans on the terms of the lenders, right? Also, where does business credit come into play? What credit cards to use for your company? I hate Capital One because it uses your personal credit all the time. It's not a business card, right? So stay away from stuff that aren't real business cards. Also, the dangers of Stripe, QuickBooks, those type of Blue Vine, PayPal loans, short-term debt loans, high interest.
PayPal loan. I mean, I've seen a lot of people using it. I thought it was a good idea. I mean, if you were probably taking 50 and up, maybe. As far as I think the fee that they charge you was somewhere around, if I can't recall, probably was it like $3,000 to $5,000 on a 50, or maybe 8,000 on 100, something like that. I think a lot of people did good with it. I don't know if it's still a good option compared to what's out there.
They're not terrible. Problem is most people can't articulate what they actually need it for, right? So like most people that take those loans out, they don't really have a clear ROI. And if you don't have a clear ROI on the money you're taking out, like one of the things I talked about is you are probably better off just setting that money on fire, because it's not going to do anything for your business and it's actually going to compound issues that you're currently facing. So there's time and place for things, but it's also understanding what they're actually doing. So like Stripe and QuickBook loans are notorious for having high service fees and then doing 20% of your payment processing, right? Your monthly payment process, whatever daily it is. But when you actually calculate out the interest, the fees, all that kind of stuff that they do, it ends up being closer to like 50% interest that you're paying on that stuff.
Wow.
So it feels like a good loan, but then when you actually calculate it out, you're like, oh man, I felt like I should have come out better than this, and I came out shorter. It's because we didn't attribute to all the other fees and stuff that they had in there because they're not always clear, right? So that's what we do is we help people read contracts, we help people read agreements so that they know what they're getting into. We help them understand how to use certain types of loans. And we help them do this all without having to always put up their personal credit, personal assets, all that kind of stuff, right? So
So you do more business B2B, right?
yep.
Alone.
Very just B2B stuff. Would direct people to the right type of loans, right type of lenders. But a lot of it is just helping clean up data, file disputes on the business credit reports, get their business credit reports up and running so that they're in good standing, they look good, they're presentable, they've got enough history on them so you can go get the car underneath your business, right?
Okay.
You can go take a loan out on your vehicle and just have it done in the EIN without a personal guarantee on it, that type of stuff.
Nice, nice. And you already told, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, our website is just blueskybusinesssolutions.com. Otherwise, Facebook, just follow me on Paul Childers. That's probably the easiest way to get a hold of
So
me.
you're like me. Your personal Facebook out there, my cell phone number is out there.
Yep.
Then,
I've been
then
using my
definitely you are the one that they need to contact
I've
because
been using the same cell phone number for so long now that I'm pretty convinced that everybody and their grandma has access to it now. So whatever.
my number is 813-900-4000. Everyone can remember it. They don't just
You're just too easy.
very quick.
So, but that's what we do. We try to keep it simple. We try to simplify the entire lending process for owners, and we try to get them into a spot of leverage is really what it is.
I see, I see. Nice.
Yeah.
Anybody got questions? Chris, Kevin, Paul, Bill, Alex, Rashad. Rashad, I gotta get you on board, Rashad. Every time you come on here, you never ask questions. But I think to be honest with you, it's like I said, we can't stress it enough as far as the financials for everyone to be very safe and to manage. I think it's all about management. I've seen people who makes very low amount of income monthly. They could have stores that brings very, very low amounts. And with that small amount, they're still making profit.
Yep.
So it's all about management. It really is. A lot of people, they just have it everywhere. Like I said, using their personal cards for their business for personal. And I think that's why a lot of people fall short at the end of the month or at the end of the year. So, make sure your financials are all done right. And I think it's if you need to get hooked up or fixed up, Paul here got you. Here's Chris. What's up, man?
Yeah, I got a question. So when I first started my business, I opened up, obviously, like I had my main credit card, which was my main, but then I needed a credit card, but I had no business credit card and I wasn't able to get approved for the Spark card at that point or whatever. So I opened up a personal credit card. However, I only use the personal for business. Like literally only use it for business, not even by mistake. And I tell my accountant that I use it for business. So is the problem of using a personal business card the problem of your credit utilization being really high all the time? Because obviously, as a business and as our business, we spend a lot of money. Or is the problem just in general having stuff that's on business be on personal?
So it's two things. One is yes, the utilization, the debt to income, and the effect on your personal score, right? The second one is you are piercing your corporate veil by doing it that way. So even if you're tracking it, even if it's only a business thing, if something were to happen and you were to get sued, or you were to have a storefront and something were to happen and you were to get, a lawsuit against you, if they were able to allocate and find that you had anything going through your business on something personal, they have a way into all of your personal assets now. So now you're not just risking your business, you're actually risking your home, you're risking your 401k, you're risking anything that you own personally in those lawsuits as well. So that's why it's important to keep those things separated, because that keeps that type of crap out. Right. And even from an insurance side of things, like if you ever get an insurance audit because you have commercial property and they realize that you're using personal credit cards, personal finances for anything, it can actually affect your approvals on your commercial insurability as well.
Okay. I got a second question. So, I'm young, right? So I'm probably one of the youngest people on the call. I'm 26 years old as of last
I'm
week.
younger than you, bro.
Yeah. Get out of here, King. So yeah, credit's really been kind of hard for me, and I would say I've never like really super screwed up. Like I haven't taken a $10,000 loan and never paid it or anything. But when I was 17, I took one of those stupid PayPal $300 credit loans and just thought I got for $300 of credit every month. Well, I learned the hard way. And then I had one default on my credit card. I have been seriously struggling to get to a 700 credit score. And except for this year, which I kind of let it sit so I could save some money and pay off some other bigger things, I'm pretty good at paying off my credit cards. If it's not the same month, it's the next month. However, by the time that I pay them off, it's that same problem with the money not hitting before the account statement hits. So what I'm getting here as one, I know that all of my date and my info with credit and everything is good. I don't feel like I have a lot of really bad stuff. Like my addresses and everything you said is up to date and everything. However, I am just struggling to get my credit to go up. And I have three business cards. I've got the personal I use as business. Obviously, I've got the Spark card that I just learned about, and then I have the Amazon Chase card. But
Sure.
I am just like not able to get that next level of threshold with credit. And I don't even know why I want a 700 credit score. I have no reason for it, but I want to get into property management after this year. And so I'm going to start taking bigger loans and things like that.
Yeah.
And I need to work really hard. And
So,
then my third question, sorry, it was a whole thing,
yeah,
is
go
when
ahead.
do you pay off the credit card? Do you pay it off right before your statement date? Or do you spend on the credit card, pay it off right after you spend? Because I have heard this. I've had lots of mentors and lots of people that help me. And I have heard this from so many different people. People say, oh, don't pay off your credit card, until your statement's due. Pay off your credit card when your statement's due. Don't hold the balance, hold the balance. And I am just so confused on how to actually manage it.
Uh, so honestly, as long as it's getting paid off essentially before the statement date, you're fine, right? Or if you pay it off before the statement date or pay it down before the statement date, essentially they're more worried about your utilization numbers on there than they are if you're actually paying it all off. So as long as your total credit limits are staying under, they say 30%. I always say keep it under 20 to be safe, 10 to be really, really safe. You'll be fine, but that has to be paid down before the statement date, right? However you do that in between the time you use it and the statement date, totally up to you, right? There is some reason to carry a little bit balance month to month once in a while because it just shows that you're carrying a balance and you're able to make payments. But you can do that more so through like actual stable loans, like a mortgage or a vehicle, right? Why does a 700 credit score matter? Well, at the end of the day, like everybody wants to say cash is king. Cash isn't king for anything anymore, right? Like credit is actually king. Like the people that have 800 plus credit scores have access to far more flexibility than those of us that have scores that are under 700 and those especially under like 625. I can tell you from experience, having a score under a 650, it is, and having had an 845 plus like credit score before, it is a crippling feeling. Like the amount of stuff you don't have access to any longer is wild, right? I would rather have an 800 plus score than I would, just being like, I'm fine at 700. But that takes time and history and that takes consistency on loans, right? But that also helps lower your insurance premiums on your personal side. It gets you into better, it allows you to buy your first homes. It allows you to go use an SBA loan if you want to. The SBA is going to be even harder to use starting June 1st of 2025. So if your personal credit and your business credit and your financials aren't in order, good luck getting an approval on an SBA. So if you ever want to buy that property, you need to have good personal scores, right? So that's why that's important. Um, but that, as far as like personal credit stuff goes, like it's all about just like length and mix and how many recent inquiries did you have? How long have you had certain credit lines open? How much money do you have access to? Your business is the same. It just scores differently, right? It's 0 to 100 versus, up to 750, 850 scores, right? So your business just needs to use the cards that are reporting to the business. It is different than your personal. Your personal can be used to help get you access to business credit cards initially, but you're going to get increases and you're going to get better scores simply by having history and a good credit profile and good payment history and good debt, good utilization and a good credit mix. A good credit mix simply means like not all of your stuff is in credit cards. It's in a mortgage. It's in vehicle loans. It's in student loans. It's in credit cards. It's in other property loans that you might have, right? It's a mix of depth and terms and length and how much you've been paying and how long you've been paying and how good you've been paying on things. Your business is going to be the same. If you only had net accounts, like net 30 accounts in your business, and that's all you ever used, you're not going to get approved for crap. But if you got vehicles in there, you got line of credit, you got credit cards, and then you've got net accounts on there, that's how you get approved for bigger and more over time. But it takes time and consistency.
You'll be surprised, Chris. I mean, I have a buddy of mine going through the same, well, he was going through the same issue you were having about his credit score was for maybe 2 years, a year and a half, for in the 670s, right? And then he had a couple of credit cards, a total of probably like $5,000, $6,000. And he had bought two cars back in 21 and 22, I think. His interest rate was 12 point something and almost 12.4 and 12.7. For 2 years, his interest, his credit score was 670, 668, or whatever. So he comes up to me a couple of months ago, maybe like 3, 4 months ago, and he goes, I can't seem to get it, going to the 700s. I haven't seen 700s in years. So I said, look, man, try this, pay off all your credit cards. So he literally paid, and this is where the savings come. And I didn't believe it until I saw it personally. So he paid off all the credit cards. They were like $4,700, paid him off, waited about a few weeks. Credit score went from 668 to 734.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that happen with me.
And this is what he did. He called he was asking me about which bank should he try to refinance his cars. Both cars payments were about $1,500 each, okay? And I don't know if you guys have Grow Financial. It's like a federal banks. These are the best banks to give you possibly the best loans and the lowest rates and stuff like that, like federal loans. So he refinanced both cars, and both cars they gave him 7% interest rate. And this is about a month ago. He went down from $1,500 on each car to I think almost $1,100 a car. He saved $800 a month just from doing his cars, refinancing his cars. $800 back to your pocket.
How much does the car have an effect on things? Because although I only owe, I think like 12,000 on my car, I've never missed a payment and had it for like 2 years, and I was set up with a 4-year payment. I'm upside down in my car. I have a 2.9% interest rate. I can't get better.
What's your interest rate?
2.9.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you definitely can.
I bought the car at like COVID or whatever.
Yeah, Paul might have the answer to that, I think it's the bank. He said something about the banks. Like
I think my credit is bad because I think that the bank knows I'm upside down in that car, and I think that my debt to income ratio is too high.
Your credit is going to be more affected by your debt to income and your utilization than if they know you're upside down. They don't care if you're upside down in the car. There's tons of people like we're technically flipped upside down in my wife's car because I didn't put enough money down on the Jeep because I didn't realize how much it was going to depreciate once like the market flipped. But that hasn't affected our credit score, right? Like my wife's still over 800. But I'm not, because I started a business, and just like everybody else, you just do what you have to get by, but you have to have a plan to get off of it at some point, right? Like there's a time and place for utilizing your personal for things. And when you're starting a business, and Tony can attest to this too, like you fight and scrap and do whatever you have to keep the doors open, the lights on, and the dream going until you get to a point where you come out of survival mode and now you're in growth mode, right? And when you get to that spot, that's when you really have to have these foundations in place. And they can be hard to hold together and keep in place. But if you have those foundations in place while you're going through this time period where you're fighting tooth and nail for everything you get, when you get to that scale mode, you're going to be able to just explode. And like the guys that like come up and they seem to come up and out of nowhere fast. And Tony can tell you this because he's been around long enough. Like those guys built those foundations by getting very smart with how do they manage their cash, how they manage their financials, what do they want everything to look like when stuff starts to click, how do I want this to go? And they built all these additional leverage points up, right? That's why you see these businesses that just come up out of nowhere and all of a sudden it's just like, boom, they're everywhere. And you're like, how did this guy like expand this fast. And it's because they put all these pieces in place, knowing that when the time was right, they were going to throw gas on it. And that's what you have to do. And this is part of that process right now is like you're going through that, you're building the engine for your car right now, and you're about to get ready to put gas in it. But if you don't build that engine right, you're just going to blow up and not go anywhere. So,
I think Chris is I think Chris has been open enough as we had previous conversations. He's been open for a good enough time to at this point. I mean, I'm a big believer that you're not supposed to buy out cars. Like cars are the worst investment that there is. So put as low as you can down and never pay off a car. Cash up front. I'm against that because the equity doesn't stay there unless it's a United States pickup truck.
yeah.
Those value definitely they do.
Well, right. And it depends on what you're using the vehicle for too, right? Like most of the companies I'm working with are home service. So like those vehicles are making those guys money, right? If you're just using the vehicle to drive back and forth for work and it's not really generating you any revenue or saving you revenue by being efficient, then absolutely think about how we use that money differently.
I think
But
the
if it's
days of keeping a car for 30, 40 years are over, man. The cars are not made the same. I
right,
think by the time you really finish paying it off 6 years later or 7 years later, in my opinion, I mean, I learned the hard way. I was a Mercedes fan, and I bought a Mercedes for $85,000, and I sold it for $5,000. You know what I mean?
yep,
So you learn your lesson along the way with cars that they're not here to keep. The minute it reaches 100,000 miles, the minute you lose value up on the car, almost I would say probably 70-80%, if I'm not wrong, you would lose. The car will depreciate itself the minute it hits 100,000 miles. So
yep,
if you care about losing or if you don't want to lose, I think it's very important to get rid of your car the minute before it reaches 100,000. You'll definitely at least get what you owe on it, and consider it more like a lease. You know what I mean? Maintenance on these cars is very important. I think you should buy the packages. They're really worth it. Because one bad luck, you're thousands out of pocket.
yep.
So cars, in my opinion, are a bad investment, but you'd have to buy them. The Going back to Chris's situation, I think Chris has been open enough right now to probably clear off whatever debt he got. In my opinion, if he owes any credit cards, if he wants his credit score to go above 700, I think it's probably time to like start over. I think if the credit card loan stays on your card for a very long amount, your credit score will get stubborn and it will never go up. So
Yep.
it's probably better to cycle it. You know what I mean? Like renew the debt. You know what I mean?
For sure.
I'm not a professional, but in my opinion, I think at one point in time I had a credit card that I kept the loan on it for about a year. When I paid it off, they turned off my credit card and they wanted me to reactivate it again.
Yep.
So so it probably plays a big role in having the debt on your name for a long amount of time.
It sure can.
It does, right?
But yeah, no, I would love to chat more about this, but I've got to bounce for the evening and get my kids to their activities tonight. But
Absolutely.
anytime you guys have questions, like reach out. Like this is what I do for a living. I work with businesses anywhere. I've got material for those that are starting up. Most of the clients that are paying me are in between like that 3.5 mil up to about 25, 30 mil. They've got 20, anywhere from 3 to 25, 30 employees. And we just help structure things out better, get them into better lending situations, access more money, and then just make sure that they've got the power back in their hands so that they're not begging banks for money. Banks are actually begging to give you money. That's the spot you want to be in.
Well, the one last piece I leave him with, I think it was from a multi-billionaire. I can't recall his name, but he said, "Why use your money when you can use banks' money?
Yep.
Use banks' money."
OPM, OPM, other people's money.
Exactly. Makes sense.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, guys, appreciate it.
Take
All right,
care.
Paul, thanks, man. Talk to you. Have a good weekend. Have a good weekend, everyone. And Josh, thank you for putting me through the hot seat. But if any one of you guys have we probably got 5 minutes if you want. If anyone of you guys have any questions or want to touch based on that. I think it's very important, like you said, really use people's money. You'll find a lot of the rich people are using banks' money. So I think it's very important to use it. What could go wrong? So best of luck to anyone and everyone, and have a good weekend, everyone. Thank you.